You have our next story for us, Josiah?
I sure do. This one it pertains to it's state politics. As a matter of fact, it's not necessarily on a federal level, but it's such a powerful story that I do want to share an article from the Washington Post about the situation in Nebraska. So what we have here is the legislative session in Nebraska has been it's been filibustered by Democrats. They've actually, for many, many months, they have attempted to filibust any bill by Republicans or Democrats because Republicans are attempting to pass a very regressive anti-trans bill. They were trying to ban gender-affirming care for minors. And you see this in multiple red states. So it's really nothing new. The Republican Party is making a full court press in every state they possibly can, Luke. But in what makes this weird in Nebraska is Democrats have successfully filibustered for months. They were making conservatives and Republicans pay for every inch. They were going out of their way to say that, listen, you may end up getting these bills passed, but it's going to be an excruciating experience for you. We are going to grind the legislature in Nebraska to a halt. But the clip I want to play in particular was from a Republican, or excuse me, a Democrat. No, an independent. It wasn't even a Democrat. She caucuses with Democrats, but she herself is technically independent. And she gives this very heartfelt speech that I have not heard anything like it in contemporary politics within recent memory. So I'd like to play this clip and hear what you all have to think about it.
Graduation. I hate that for you. I'm so sorry. Seriously, I would hate to have that happen to me. And I'm happy you're listening because I'm only asking you, we are only here doing this because of LB 574, period. I am not asking you to sit here through late nights to vote on these bills that we're dragging out. I'm asking you to love your family more than you hate mine. I'm asking you to love your family more than you hate mine. If your family wants you home to recover from surgery, maybe you should do that. If you want to go see your grandson graduate from preschool, you should do that. Instead, you are here to drag out this session because you won't come off this bill that hurts my son. You hate him more than you love your own family, and that's why you're here. And so, go to the graduation. Go recover from your surgery. We don't need you here. We need you to vote no or present not voting on 574 because, there's nothing else in this body that's affecting your family that way.
Wow.
Powerful stuff. I do want to provide just a bit of context here specifically to that clip before you give your thoughts. So that was, again, an independent Nebraska Senator, Megan Hunt, who has a trans son. And what she was referring to was, again, initially, Democrats were able to successfully filibust this anti-trans gender-affirming care bill successfully. But it got so much media attention and so much publicity that conservatives and Republicans in the state were really spitefully motivated. And I'll get into exactly what I mean there. So Republicans paired this gender-affirming care bill with another conservatively popular anti-abortion bill that was going to try to ban abortion at 6 weeks. It failed. So Republicans thought, okay, how are we going to get this stuff through, especially when we're running out of time? So they increased the window to 12 weeks. It's still a very draconian 12-week abortion ban. And they paired it with the bill against gender-affirming care. So there was a hybrid bill. It got the 33 additional votes it needed to break the filibuster. And this is what Megan Hunt is responding to, because two of the Republican senators, Luke, one of them was complaining, I had to miss my grandchild's preschool graduation. Another one had recently had surgery and, against the wishes of his physician and his family, went into the state house to vote for a ban against gender affirming care, and an abortion ban at 12 weeks. So that's what she's responding to, that level of spite. So what are your thoughts on all of this?
Absolutely incredible on her part. And I think sometimes Democrats, she's, as you mentioned, technically an independent, but liberals fall into, not that it's always bad, but too much of civility politics, caring too much about trying to, even on serious issues, staying respectful, which is admirable a lot of times. But what that does is it sometimes gets in the way of people responding in a justified manner and making sure they're speaking in a way that is aligned with the moment. And there, she didn't mince words. She didn't avoid saying what she meant. Those lawmakers, they do, whether or not they think they feel it in their heart, their actions are putting upon her son hate, and that's the priority, more than she's able, than these lawmakers are able to prioritize their own family. They're prioritizing going after this lawmaker's son. Remind me her name really quickly.
Megan Hunt.
Megan Hunt's son. They're prioritizing that action over these important moments in their own lives and their own families' lives. And one of the things I said during a past segment, either about that Florida lawmaker who called trans people demons, that's the word he used, demons and mutants, this Florida state lawmaker. And then a different one who said some bizarre statement going, terrorists, they hate gay people more than we do, even more than we do. And one of the things I said was, I really wonder if, and I beg for some of these lawmakers to just wonder for a moment how it feels not to be them, but to be the subject of their demonization and to be the subject of their policy decisions. Because I think sometimes the only equation that's going on in their head is, how does this affect me politically? Okay, right now the Republican base is really hyped about these anti-LGBTQ actions, and okay, so that's good, check. And then maybe, yeah, I don't really like the idea of gender affirming care, so that's check. And then maybe for many of them, there's some deep-seated hate there as well, and it's motivating their actions. Okay, but add to that equation what it must feel like to be the person you're going after, to be the like I said, subject of your hatred. How does it feel to look up at, in the example of this Florida lawmaker who called trans people demons, someone who's supposed to be your leader, and they're saying that about you just for who you are? And it's unimaginable. And I wish people would, who are pushing for these actions, would resonate with that. I have a lot more to say, but jump in here, Josiah.
No, I think you hit the nail on the head. The salient point that she made, and again, you emphasize it too, is this idea that, Republicans are supposed to be the party of family values, and we see them betray, like elected Republicans betray that reputation time and time again. How many times has an elected Republican been caught for a verifiably non-family value scandal one time after another?
Trump found liable of sexual abuse recently, yeah.
Right. Yeah. You have the leader of the Republican Party who is, a serial philanderer, right? Now being found liable by a jury of his peers for sexual abuse and defamation. That certainly doesn't comport itself with family values. But even that aside, you take a situation like this in Nebraska. As far as we know, there are no crimes being committed at this moment, at least legal crimes, by the Republican Party. But the lack of family values, not only the lack of family values, the betrayal of family values in a situation like this. So you have an example of two Republican senators in the Nebraska State House, one of whom had the opportunity to see her grandchild graduate from preschool, which you would assume would be like an affirmative family values event. And then another one who underwent surgery and was within the company of his family trying to recover. The family values approach would have been, okay, if given the choice between legislating my hate or spending time with a loved one, go spend time with a loved one. Or if given the choice between legislating my hate towards, again, a minority group, a marginalized group, or recuperating from a physically taxing surgery in the comfort of my family, that you would do that instead. So we are seeing on just so many levels of betrayal time and time again of family values by Republican elected officials.
And You're so right. Another example of this is all of the advocacy for the book bannings, and for some of the stances on COVID and children shouldn't be forced to do this, that, and the other thing, had to do with parental rights. Parental rights, parental rights, parental rights. That's what they said, right? And now they are actively taking away the rights of parents to support their trans youth. I want to remind people, of course, the narrative they'll go with is this is children who are, we heard recently Don Jr. say 3-year-olds who are having their genitals cut off, and stories about what's going on. In reality, you have things like puberty blockers at the beginning, sort of, after extensive consultation. And this is a really interesting thing to focus in on because number one, it's reversible. And number two, puberty blockers are something that trans youth take and cis youth take when they start puberty too early. So that gives you a sense of if a parent under some of these laws were to go in and go through the proper processes and have their doctor prescribe puberty blockers to their child, if their child started puberty too early, that would be legal. They would allow the medical experts and the parents and the child to make the decision on that. But if it was because they were trans, we can't trust parents and medical experts to make decisions about children. It's a violation of the parental rights thing. And then, of course, they'll work here so hard. They'll push and push after all of this filibustering and finally successfully get this legislation through because they want to protect the kids, right? Oh, the kids are being gone after by the radical rainbow mafia or whatever we hear. And they'll work so hard to do that. But when it comes to the leading cause of death for children, they won't burn 1 calorie trying to get through legislation to regulate guns, which are the leading cause of death for children in the United States. So all of it, like you said, it's violation after violation of their own purported principles.
Yeah, and it's also, an exercise in hypocrisy in 2 other ways that you highlighted too. So the first one is the Republican Party's distrust of psychiatric and medical authorities. The same psychiatric, anytime that a Republican voter, Republican legislator, a Republican politician of any kind goes to a therapist or a psychiatrist, odds are, if they're doing so here in the United States, the person to whose authority they're deferring is somebody who in turn defers to the authority of the American Psychiatric Association. When they go to take their children to a physician, they're probably, it's a physician who's under the purview or seeking the authority of the American Pediatrics Association. When they themselves go to the doctor, for the flu or a broken bone or whatever, they're going to a doctor who gets their guidance from the you understand, the American Medical Association. It's so the same authorities that they put themselves and their children to the authority of in every other context except when it comes to trans issues. It's so bizarre. And then the second hypocrisy is, like you said, when it comes to Second Amendment rights. And Republicans are so concerned about guns and Second Amendment issues. They care more about that than the right of a second grader to make it to the 3rd grade, right? That's the frustrating thing. So, and again, we've talked about this, and this will be a recurring theme. Many Republicans, especially Republican politicians, don't care because they're not held accountable for their hypocrisy. So why should they hold themselves accountable for it? But it is important to point out because maybe one of you watching will hear this and find the right combination of words where others have failed and successfully persuade that Republican voter or that Republican politician to really reconsider. So it's still worth pointing out.
Thank you so much for watching this video. For the outro, I want to quickly plug Josiah's channel. Hit them with it, Josiah.
All right, folks, you can find me at youtube.com/@ponderingpolitics, one word. If you like progressive politics, if you like the Republican Party being called out, and if you like collaborations with Luke Beasley, hit me up there.